The kind boy Varian, who we had last seen become corrupted by his own ambition, has come back to Tangled the series prepared to undo the mistakes he had made. Today, we'll be discussing the young alchemist's return and his pursuit of redemption. Hello, I'm Isaac from Watso Videos, where we discuss fun topics for fun people. I'm focused on spreading magic by examining Disney, so if you are new here, consider following my adventures on Instagram and subscribing. The tragic unraveling of Varian is a story that was fascinating and depressing to see, as we had to watch him in Season 1 degrade into a single-minded, ruthless, and thoughtless antagonist. While Varian had been promised by Rapunzel that they would work together to figure out how to rid the kingdom of the black rocks that were destroying the land, unfortunately, Rapunzel wouldn't be able to keep her promise when he needed her most.
Don't worry, Varian. I haven't forgotten our agreement. We're gonna figure out the mystery behind these rocks together.
Varian had always used his intellect and knowledge to help and impress those he cared for, but it was truly only after failing to make his father see him in a positive light, after all of his attempts to protect and build upon the lives of his people, that he begins to break down. When he causes his father, Kieran, to be entrapped in the very substance his father had warned him about staying away from, an amber derivative of the black rocks, Varian's once kind and sweet personality was stripped away as he furiously pursued the approval of his father and his revenge on those who would not help him when his father was suffering. Of course, that unfortunately included Princess Rapunzel, who was unable to assist him when Kieran was becoming encased in the amber. Using his rage, Varian fell deep into despair as he went farther and farther to undo his mistake. As his morality fell apart, Varian turned his back on the world and truly became someone who tragically had made decisions that would not have made his father proud. To see my full breakdown of Varian's fall to evil, you can check out that video in the description. But here's what you need to know about where he ended up at his lowest point. In hopes of using Rapunzel's newly regrown magical hair to free his father from the indestructible amber he was entrapped within, Varian threatens the lives of Rapunzel, her friends, royal guards, and civilians using his robotic automatons, and even goes to the extent of kidnapping Queen Ariana herself to lure Rapunzel to him. Eventually, though, the kingdom bands together to take on Varian's forces, and using the very hair that he desired to use for himself, Rapunzel halts Varian's efforts. For his crimes against Corona, Varian is then locked away, but King Frederick assures Rapunzel that he will take action to get him help. Unfortunately, though, Varian isn't able to move towards forgiveness, as he is instead tempted even further towards bringing Corona misfortune by his cellmate Andrew. You see, Andrew was a member of the Separatists of Seporia, an organization bent on destroying the kingdom of Corona. But through Andrew's charismatic charm, he was able to convince Varian that together they could restore Corona's confidence in him. Thus, Varian assists the Seporians on their quest to break out of prison, use their Seporian wand of oblivion on the king and queen, and take control of Corona, all while Rapunzel was away. But of course, we later learn that Varian isn't working with these criminals to gain power or riches or influence, though. All he is seeking is forgiveness, and I think this is a perfect way to continue his story. All Varian wanted was for his life to go back to how it once was before he went down his destructive path. He hoped he could set everything right so that he could one day be accepted again. But his choices only led him further away from receiving true forgiveness.
I took their queen prisoner. I threatened their princess. I helped these guys take over their kingdom. You think anyone's gonna give me a second chance?
Scrambling to find a way to come back to Corona, Andrew leveraged Varian's uncertainty of the future and convinced him to use his alchemy to clear the memories of every single person who he may have impacted, which would also allow them to hold a tighter grasp on Corona. And quickly, Varian latched onto this idea and developed a plan to make it become a reality. Varian planned to synthesize the Seporian wand's power into a gas so that everyone's memories in Corona could be erased. And to remember his father while he went through with this act, he called the gas Curinium. All of this is told to Rapunzel's party when she returns to Corona and is stunned to find her kingdom overrun, with Varian assisting in the efforts to undo their home.
Welcome home, Rapunzel.
Rapunzel and all of her friends then fight against Varian and the Seporians, hoping to battle the foreign invaders away, but they are eventually overrun. Hoping to get through to her friend, Rapunzel pleads to Varian to help them stop the Sapporians, though he won't turn away before Andrew literally blows them out of the throne room with the strength of Varian's alchemy. While Andrew was just getting started enjoying their work breaking apart Corona though, all Varian could do was look down with concern at what he was doing. All Varian could hope to do was create his Curinium to reset the kingdom, but his calculations were a bit incorrect, so instead of erasing memories, the gas, when exposed to air, caused a massive explosion which inspired the heinous Sapporians. Desperate to stop them, Rapunzel goes after them on her own, and is imprisoned when she becomes lost in her own emotions that had become clouded by the betrayal that had recently occurred from her best friend Cassandra. The Sapporians then lock her away, and Rapunzel questions Varian on his motives for betraying Corona. What Varian reveals to her is the sad truth that Varian doesn't desire to hurt anyone or get anything, but just correct his mistakes.
It's not what they did to me. It's what I did to them. And there is no way that they will ever forgive me.
He didn't trust in people's ability to forgive him for all that he had done, so he took action to alter his situation using the alchemy he felt comfortable conducting, and continuing down the path he believed others expected of him. When Andrew and the other Sapporians altered their plans though, and they decided to use his current version of Curinium not to erase the mines within Corona, but completely demolish the city, Varian stands up to them, refusing to harm his people any further. In response, they overwhelm him and lock him away with Rapunzel. It's here where Varian seems to be at his most depressed and aimless point. He had not only failed at accomplishing his goal of correcting his mistakes, but his choices had now put all of Corona into danger. Varian opens up to Rapunzel that all he ever wanted was to make his father proud, and he admits that if Kieran could see him, that he would be ashamed of what he had done. Rapunzel does try to assure him, though, that his fight against Andrew was a brave decision, and that she understands what it is like to have someone she trusted completely turn against her. Of course, she was thinking of Cassandra's actions, and Varian hears what she is saying, opening up that he truly missed Rapunzel's friendship.
That's why I thought maybe if I can make you forget everything that happened, we could be friends again. Learn to trust again. But I guess life doesn't really work that way.
Soon after this moment of clarity and bonding between Rapunzel and Varian though, Eugene, Lance, and Max come to the rescue, and we get the hilarious moment where we find out that Varian doesn't have facial hair but actually just drew it on. While Eugene comes down hard on the tormented boy initially, Rapunzel assured them all that they needed him to save Corona. Rapunzel was proving that she would support him on his journey back to his life. Together, Rapunzel and Varian board the Sapporian airship and battle the many soldiers to stop the Curinium from leveling the city. While there are a few setbacks here and there, in the end, Varian takes responsibility for the mess he has created, but Rapunzel refuses to let him sacrifice his life to undo his choices. She would risk her own life to protect her kingdom by blowing up the airship high above Corona. Varian had taken his first steps towards unraveling the harm he had caused to Corona, and for making that movement out of the dark place he had been trapping himself within, Rapunzel knew it was time for her to work to keep her promise to him. While Rapunzel didn't have every answer to the Black Rocks just yet, she had learned a lot about them and herself on her adventures to the Dark Kingdom, which meant that she finally had the knowledge to free Varian's father. Using the Moondrop incantation, Rapunzel summoned the dark magic that slowly began to melt and absorb the amber around Kieran. But when Varian attempted to awaken Rapunzel from her trance after Kieran was freed, he was unable to at first. In this moment where Varian had gotten exactly what he wanted, the return of his father, he looks beyond himself as he once had. As he was able to see through Rapunzel's continuous kindness and faith in him, he no longer saw himself as someone who had to fight against the world on his own, which is why, while the incantation held, Varian commits to her that he would never give up on her. Varian is willing to embrace and support Rapunzel again, like she had done for him.
You didn't give up on me. I'm not giving up on you.
All of a sudden, Rapunzel breaks free of the incantation, and even though Varian didn't have to take action to save her, we are able to see that his kindness is truly shining through again. After making sure Rapunzel is okay, then we finally get to see what we have been waiting for months to see accomplished. Through Rapunzel's powerful, almost uncontrollable force, Varian finally was able to reunite with his father, learn what his father had written to him, and hear the words that he had always longed for his father to tell him.
I'm so proud of you, Varian. I always have been.
I love you, Dad.
Through the support and forgiveness of his friend, Varian's greatest mistake had been undone. While Varian had swirled to a dark place until he reached a point where he was convinced that he was irredeemable, Rapunzel showed him that it was never too late to seek forgiveness. By assisting in the efforts to fight against the problems that he had created, and by remaining patient as others learned to accept him again, Varian is able to humbly see his world begin to be restored. Through Rapunzel's resolve, Varian was beginning to put in the work that was needed to turn away from his selfish, arrogant, and destructive ways, open up his humanity again, and start down the path of redemption. The third season of Tangled the series has been a blast so far this week, and I can't wait to see what continues to happen. There's so much craftsmanship by the creators and fantastic stories to tell. And if you'd like to learn more about how the show came to be in the first place, definitely go listen to my interview with showrunner Chris Sonnenberg, as he discusses his journey to follow his dreams.
Definitely a lot of it had to do with me leaving my house for the first time, and you know, when we that first place they go, Varderos, what's interesting about Varderos is basically when I went to New York for the opening of Pocahontas. We went to the premiere of Pocahontas. We flew to New York, and I'd never been out. I'd never flown that far before. I'd never been to a giant city like that, and so I wanted to kind of give Rapunzel that experience of being out in the world.
You can find links to the audio and video version of the interview in the description. The interview is a part of a podcast I'm building called Following Dreams. I think it's a really exciting project that I hope you enjoy as well. To see more Tangled videos, you can find a link to those in the description, and if you'd like to continue to see more magical discussions like this one, then don't forget to click that subscribe button and the beautiful bell if you're new. Thank you to my wonderful patrons over on Patreon who are amazing supporters of my videos, and as always, thanks for watching and have a magical day.